The morning started like any other at the Global Space Command Center in Geneva. The staff went about their usual tasks, monitoring satellites and space debris, until every screen in the facility suddenly went dark. When they came back online, a single message glowed across all displays. "We have arrived." Tom Wilson, the center's director, was drinking his third cup of coffee when the alarm started blaring. He rushed to the main control room, his coffee forgotten on his desk. The sight that greeted him made him freeze in his tracks. A massive ship, unlike anything humans had ever built, hung in the sky above Earth. It was beautiful in a terrifying way, all smooth curves and shimmering metal that seemed to change color as it caught the sunlight. Smaller vessels broke away from the mothership, descending toward major cities across the globe. "Sir," called out Mary White, his chief communications officer. "They're broadcasting on all frequencies. The message is in English." The aliens called themselves the Watchers, representatives of the Galactic Council. They requested an immediate meeting with Earth's leaders at the United Nations headquarters in New York. Their tone wasn't hostile, but it wasn't friendly either. It carried the kind of patience one might use when speaking to a child. Within hours, the UN Assembly Hall was packed. World leaders sat in tense silence as three tall, slender figures walked onto the stage. The Watchers had pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer under the lights. Their movements were graceful but stiff, like dancers trying not to show off. The tallest Watcher stepped forward. "We are the representatives of the Galactic Council, the governing body of civilized, space-faring species." Its voice came through a translator device, smooth and artificial. "We have been observing your species for some time." Tom sat in the back of the hall, representing the Space Command. He noticed how the aliens' four eyes barely blinked, as if trying not to miss any sudden movements from the humans. "Your species has achieved basic spaceflight," the Watcher continued. "Though your methods are primitive, you have split the atom. Though you still waste this technology on weapons, you have computers, though they are remarkably simple by Council standards." The assembly stirred uncomfortably. Tom felt his face grow hot at the dismissive tone. "The Council has decided to offer Earth a place in the galactic community, as a protectorate species." The Watcher paused, as if expecting gratitude. "You will be guided by more advanced races. Your development will be supervised. Your military activities will be restricted. This is for your own safety, of course." The alternative, the Watcher explained, was isolation. Earth would be cut off from all galactic trade routes and knowledge. A barrier would be placed around the solar system, preventing any space exploration beyond Mars. "You have one Earth month to decide," the Watcher concluded, "though we expect any rational species would see the benefits of our offer immediately." After the Watchers left, the assembly erupted into heated discussions. Tom watched the aliens retreat, noting how they barely looked at the human security guards, as if they posed no threat worth considering. Later that evening, in a private meeting room, Tom sat with several world leaders and military commanders. General Laura Brooks, a decorated veteran, spoke what many were thinking. Did anyone else feel like we were being talked down to by a group of overdressed teachers? "They see us as children," Tom replied, staring at the image of the Watcher ship on his tablet. "They think we're primitive because we haven't mastered faster-than-light travel or whatever other advanced technology they have." "Well," said the Chinese military representative, "perhaps it's time they learned that humanity has a few surprises of its own." Tom looked out the window at the alien ship still visible in the evening sky. The Watchers had made one crucial mistake. They had revealed their superiority complex right from the start. And if there was one thing humans were good at, it was proving others wrong. As the meeting continued into the night, none of the humans present knew that this was just the beginning. The Watchers' underestimation of humanity would prove to be their greatest mistake, one that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. 2 weeks after first contact, the Watchers began their formal assessment of Earth. Their inspection teams arrived in silver pods that landed in major cities across the globe. Each team consisted of 3 observers who carried devices that looked like glowing tablets. Tom Wilson watched from his office as one such team walked through the Space Command Center. They barely glanced at the humans around them, focused entirely on their scanning devices. Their blue skin seemed to grow paler under Earth's sun, and they wore what looked like environmental suits. "Primitive cooling systems," muttered one observer, making notes as they passed through the control room. "Inefficient use of space. High-risk manual override systems." The lead observer, who called himself First Observer, stopped at Mary White's station. She was running a complex satellite tracking program she had developed herself. The observer studied her screen for a moment. "Interesting," he said, though his tone suggested otherwise. "Your species still relies heavily on visual interfaces. Most civilized races have evolved beyond such basic needs." Mary's fingers tightened on her keyboard, but she kept her face neutral. Tom had briefed all staff to remain professional, no matter how condescending the aliens became. The assessment continued for days. The observers went through military bases, research facilities, and manufacturing plants. They watched human sports, studied human art, and observed human education. Everything they saw seemed to reinforce their belief in human primitiveness. At the Pentagon, General Laura Brooks led a demonstration of Earth's military capabilities. The observers watched footage of tanks, fighter jets, and naval vessels with what seemed like amusement. "Your weapons rely on chemical propulsion and kinetic impact," First Observer noted. "Most species outgrow such methods within their first millennium of civilization." "Perhaps," Laura replied carefully, "but they serve our needs." "Yes," the observer said, making another note. "Like children satisfied with toy blocks before discovering quantum engineering." The final assessment meeting was held at the UN. Representatives from around the world gathered to hear the Watchers' evaluation. Tom sat next to Laura, both maintaining carefully blank expressions as First Observer presented his findings. "Humanity shows several concerning traits," the alien began. "Your species is remarkably aggressive, maintaining multiple competing military forces on a single planet. Your technology is uneven, capable of splitting atoms but still burning fossil fuels. Your social structures are chaotic, with no unified planetary government." He paused, his 4 eyes scanning the room. "Most troubling is your species' resistance to specialization. Humans attempt to adapt to all environments rather than evolving to perfect specific roles. This indicates a lack of proper evolutionary development." The human representatives listened in silence as the observer continued listing humanity's deficiencies. Tom noticed how several military officers were taking careful notes, their faces masks of polite attention. However, First Observer concluded, "The Council believes these flaws can be corrected with proper guidance. Under our supervision, humanity can be shaped into a more civilized species." After the meeting, Tom met with a small group of human leaders in a secure room. "They think our adaptability is a weakness," he said, spreading out the observer's public report. "They've missed the point entirely," Laura added, studying the report. "They see our ability to survive anywhere, to use any tool, to think in any way needed, as primitive. They don't understand that's our greatest strength." The human leaders agreed to accept the Council's offer of protectorate status, for now. But privately, they began preparing. The Watchers had revealed much about themselves during their assessment, while seeing only what humans wanted them to see. As the Watcher ships departed Earth's atmosphere, carrying their reports of a primitive but manageable species, humanity began its own preparations. The observers had failed to notice something crucial. Humans work best when underestimated. Little did the Watchers know, their detailed assessment would soon prove to be dangerously incomplete. The true test of their assumptions about humanity was coming sooner than they could imagine. 3 months after Earth accepted its status as a Council protectorate, the emergency alarms in the Global Space Command Center went off again. This time, it wasn't because of the Watchers. Tom Wilson rushed into the control room to find Mary White already pulling up data from their new Council-provided monitoring systems. The screens showed a battle raging near a mining colony in a system 40 light-years from Earth. "The Raiders," Mary explained, reading from the incoming reports. "They're attacking Council mining operations. They've already hit 3 colonies in the past week." The Raiders were exactly what their name suggested: space pirates who attacked peaceful settlements. But these weren't ordinary pirates. They were organized, efficient, and had military-grade weapons. The main screen showed Council defense ships being torn apart by smaller, faster vessels that seemed to appear and disappear at will. The Raiders' ships moved in patterns that made no sense to the Council commanders, but were oddly familiar to the watching humans. "Those are guerrilla tactics," General Laura Brooks said, having arrived moments ago. "Hit and run. Just like old Earth warfare, but in space." The Council's response was predictable and rigid. Their ships moved in standard formations, following textbook strategies that hadn't changed in centuries. The Raiders simply waited for these patterns and struck at the weak points. Then came the news that made even the Watchers nervous. The Raiders had captured a Council weapons facility. They now had access to advanced technology, and the Council's standard defensive protocols were failing. 2 days later, First Observer arrived at the Space Command Center. His usual arrogance was dimmed by what looked like worry. "The Council requires human assistance," he announced, as if the words tasted bitter. "Your species has extensive experience with primitive combat tactics. The Raiders are using methods similar to your historical warfare." Tom shared a look with Laura. They had been expecting this, preparing for it. "We'd be happy to help," Tom said carefully, "but we'll need full access to information about the Raiders' attacks." "Impossible," First Observer replied immediately. "Council military data is not for Protectorate species." Just then, another alert came in. The Raiders had struck again, this time destroying a Council supply fleet. The casualties were heavy. First Observer's skin turned a paler shade of blue. After a long moment, he spoke again. "Perhaps some information could be shared, under strict supervision." Laura stepped forward, her face serious. "With all due respect, First Observer, if you want our help, you need to trust us. Half measures will only lead to half results." The Observer's 4 eyes blinked rapidly as he received new updates about the Raiders' attacks. More Council ships destroyed. More colonies under threat. The Raiders were using tactics that the Council's sophisticated warfare protocols couldn't counter. "Very well," he said finally. "The Council grants humans temporary access to military data, but only for the purpose of stopping these Raiders." As soon as First Observer left, the room burst into activity. Humans had been fighting guerrilla warfare for thousands of years. They understood irregular tactics, surprise attacks, and psychological warfare in ways the Council species never had to learn. "They think warfare is about having the best technology," Laura said, studying the attack patterns. "They never learned that it's really about outsmarting your enemy." Tom looked at the tactical displays, watching another Council fleet fall into a Raider trap. Their biggest mistake was thinking that humanity's warlike history was a weakness. They never considered that it might become their greatest asset. As the human team began their work, Tom couldn't help but smile slightly. The Watchers had dismissed humans as primitive warriors. Now they would learn what primitive warriors could do when given access to advanced technology. The Raiders had no idea what was coming. They thought they were fighting the same old Council forces. Instead, they were about to face something the galaxy hadn't seen before: human military innovation combined with Council technology. The real war was about to begin. The Council's emergency war room was unlike anything humans had seen before. Holographic displays filled the air, showing real-time movements of both Council and Raider ships. General Laura Brooks stood in the center of this sophisticated room, looking at the data with experienced eyes. First Observer hovered nearby, clearly uncomfortable with a primitive species having access to such advanced technology. "We await your analysis, General Brooks. Though I must remind you that Council military doctrine has been refined over thousands of years." Laura ignored his condescending tone. She had spent the last week studying the raiders' attacks, and something had caught her attention. "Tell me," she said, "why do the raiders always attack in groups of 3? The council members looked confused. "Their ship formations are irrelevant," one said. "Our concern is their superior stealth technology." "Wrong," Laura said firmly. "They attack in 3s because they're using basic small unit tactics. 1 to attack, 1 to support, 1 to watch for counterattacks. It's not about technology. It's about strategy." Tom Wilson, who had been quiet until now, stepped forward. "Show us the attack patterns from the last month," he requested. The holographic display changed, showing dozens of raider strikes. "Look," Tom pointed. "They're not using superior technology to disappear. They're hiding in debris fields, using solar radiation for cover, and timing their attacks with stellar phenomena. These are old Earth Navy tactics, just adapted for space." The council members watched in silence as Laura and Tom broke down each raider attack. The humans pointed out things the council had overlooked: the psychological warfare of attacking civilian targets, the use of feints to draw out defenders, the careful targeting of supply lines. "The raiders aren't winning because they're stronger," Laura explained. "They're winning because they understand something you forgot. Warfare isn't just about having the best weapons. It's about outsmarting your enemy." First observer's skin rippled with what might have been irritation. "And what do you suggest? That we abandon our advanced tactics for primitive human warfare?" Laura smiled. "No, I suggest we combine them." Over the next few hours, Laura outlined her plan. It was unlike anything the council had considered. Instead of relying on sophisticated battle computers, they would use human intuition combined with council technology. Instead of following standard protocols, they would adapt their tactics for each situation. "We'll need to form special mixed crews," Tom added. "Humans working alongside council species. We can teach each other." The council members looked horrified at the suggestion. "Impossible." First observer protested. "Our crews are carefully selected and trained in proper procedures." Just then, another alert came in. The raiders had struck again, this time destroying a major council shipyard. The loss was devastating. First observer's protest died in his throat. He looked at the casualty reports, then at the humans who seemed so confident in their primitive tactics. "The council," he said slowly, "will consider your suggestions." Within days, the first mixed crews began training. Human military veterans worked with council technicians, teaching them about improvisation and adaptability. Council engineers showed humans how to operate their advanced systems, surprised by how quickly they learned. Laura watched from the command center as the first joint patrol ships launched. They looked like standard council vessels on the outside, but inside, they were something entirely new. A combination of human courage and council technology. "The raiders won't expect this," Tom said, standing beside her. "They think they're fighting the same old council forces." Laura nodded. "That's their mistake. Just like it was the council's mistake to think human warfare was primitive. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways, especially when you combine them with new technology." As the joint fleet disappeared into hyperspace, both humans and council members watched in anticipation. The raiders were about to learn a harsh lesson about underestimating humanity's martial skills. The real test was about to begin. The first battle between the joint human council fleet and the raiders happened near a small mining colony in the Centauri sector. General Laura Brooks stood on the bridge of the flagship, watching as human and council crew members worked side by side. "Raider ships detected," announced Mary White, who had been chosen to coordinate communications. 3 groups, classic attack formation. First observer, who had insisted on witnessing this operation, looked nervous. "Our ships should move into standard defense pattern." "No," Laura interrupted. "Let them come closer." She turned to the crew. "Remember your training. Fight like humans, think like humans, but use council tech." The raiders approached confidently, expecting the usual predictable council response. Instead, they found chaos. The joint fleet had scattered. appearing completely disorganized. Some ships seemed to drift aimlessly, while others appeared to flee in panic. The raiders, seeing what looked like an easy victory, moved in for the kill. That's when Laura gave the signal. The seemingly disabled ships suddenly came to life. The fleeing vessels turned sharply, revealing hidden weapon ports. The raiders found themselves caught in a trap as old as warfare itself, the false retreat. Now, Laura commanded. Council beam weapons, guided by human gunners who understood the art of leading a target, struck with deadly accuracy. Human tactical officers, using Council sensor technology, predicted and countered the raiders' escape routes. Impossible, First Observer whispered as he watched the battle unfold. They're using our most advanced systems like they've trained for years. Tom Wilson, standing nearby, smiled. Humans are good at adapting. It's what you called our greatest weakness, remember? The raiders, faced with unexpected tactics and unpredictable movements, began to retreat. But Laura wasn't finished. She had studied Earth's naval history, particularly the strategies of ancient admirals who knew how to turn a retreat into a rout. All ships, execute pattern echo, she ordered. It was a human formation disguised by Council technology, a hunting pattern designed to separate and eliminate fleeing enemies. The battle lasted less than an hour. When it was over, most of the raider ships were either captured or destroyed. The few that escaped would carry stories of a new kind of Council fleet, one that fought with both advanced technology and primitive cunning. In the aftermath, First Observer approached Laura. His blue skin had taken on a slight purple tinge, which humans had learned was a sign of strong emotion. Your tactics, he said slowly, they were effective, but they went against centuries of established Council doctrine. Sometimes the old ways work best, Laura replied, especially when your enemy has learned to counter all your new ways. The victory news spread quickly through Council space. More joint fleets were commissioned, with humans taking key positions in tactical and strategic planning. The raiders, who had grown confident in their ability to predict Council responses, now faced an enemy they couldn't understand. Tom reviewed the battle recordings with a group of Council analysts. See here, he pointed to a key moment. We used your sensor technology to hide in the solar wind, just like Earth submarines used to hide in thermal layers under the ocean. Old tactics, new tools. The Council members watched with growing respect. They had dismissed human warfare as primitive, never understanding that its very primitiveness, its reliance on cunning, deception, and adaptability, made it effective against their own rigid, predictable methods. Laura stood at a viewport, watching Council technicians repair battle damage using technologies humans were only beginning to understand. They thought giving us access to advanced technology would be dangerous, she said to Tom. They never realized that keeping it from us was even more dangerous. The raiders had made the same mistake as the Council. They had underestimated humanity. Now they were learning, just as the Council had learned, that humans were at their most dangerous when others thought them weak. And this was only the beginning. After 3 months of successful joint operations, the time had come for humanity to reveal their final surprise. Tom Wilson stood before the Council's high command, with General Laura Brooks at his side. First Observer watched from his seat, his 4 eyes fixed on the humans. You've seen what we can do with your technology, Tom began. Now let us show you what we've been keeping secret. At his signal, Mary White activated a secure channel to Earth. The holographic display lit up with images that made even the most composed Council members gasp. These are Earth's hidden defense systems, Laura explained. Stealth satellites, AI-driven combat systems, and quantum communication networks. We didn't show them during your assessment. First Observer's skin turned almost white. You deceived us. We protected ourselves, Tom corrected, just like we've been doing for thousands of years. And now we're ready to combine these systems with Council technology to end the raider threat once and for all. The display showed Earth vessels emerging from hidden bases on the Moon and Mars. They were smaller than Council ships, but packed with human innovations. Hybrid systems that combined Earth's AI with Council energy weapons, stealth technology that even Council sensors struggle to detect. While you were teaching us about your technology, Laura said, we were adapting it, improving it with human ingenuity. We don't just copy, we innovate. The Council's military commander, watching silently until now, leaned forward. Why reveal this now? Because we found the Raiders' main base, Mary announced, bringing up a new set of scans, and defeating them will require everything we have, both human and Council technology working together. The scans showed a massive asteroid base hidden in a dust cloud at the edge of Council space. The Raiders had been using natural phenomena to mask their presence, just as humans had done with their own secret facilities. Our stealth ships can get close without detection, Laura explained. Council weapons can breach their defenses, but the real key is this. She pointed to a complex series of diagrams. We've developed a hybrid AI system that can predict and counter Raider tactics in real time. First Observer studied the plans with growing amazement. This technology, it's beyond anything we expected from Earth. That was the point, Tom said quietly. You saw what you expected to see. A primitive species playing with simple machines. You never looked deeper because you didn't think you had to. The Council members conferred briefly before reaching a decision. They would authorize a joint strike on the Raider base, using the combined strength of human and Council forces. As the meeting ended, First Observer approached Tom. There is something I don't understand, he said. Why help us at all, after we dismissed your species as primitive? Tom smiled. Because that's another thing you didn't understand about humans. We don't just fight well. We also know the value of making allies, even with those who once looked down on us. The next day, preparation for the final battle began. Earth ships, their true capabilities now revealed, joined with Council vessels in the largest fleet ever assembled. Human AI systems interfaced with Council computers, creating a network more powerful than either civilization had achieved alone. Laura stood on the bridge of the flagship, humans and Council members working together around her. Send the message to all ships, she ordered. Operation Turning Point is go. As the massive fleet moved out, First Observer watched from the command center. He thought about how thoroughly his species had misjudged humanity. They had seen humans' adaptability as a weakness, their varied approaches to problems as primitive, their secretive nature as proof of their limitations. Now he understood. Those weren't weaknesses at all. They were the strengths that would win this war. The final battle was about to begin, and the Raiders were about to learn what happens when humanity reveals its full potential. The battle for the Raiders' main base would be remembered as one of the most significant conflicts in Council history. The combined fleet dropped out of hyperspace at precisely calculated points, using the dust cloud's natural interference patterns just as human submarines once used thermal layers in Earth's oceans. General Laura Brooks stood at the command center, watching as years of human military experience merged with centuries of Council technology. First Observer stood beside her, his earlier condescension replaced by genuine respect. First wave, begin approach, Laura commanded. The smaller Earth vessels, nearly invisible thanks to their hybrid stealth systems, led the attack. They slipped through the Raiders' sensor net using paths that seemed random but were carefully planned by human tactical eye. The Raiders never saw them coming. Now, Laura ordered, and human-operated Council ships emerged from hiding positions throughout the dust cloud. The Raiders found themselves caught in a three-dimensional version of an ancient Earth pincer movement. Their ships are launching, Mary White reported from her station, but they're following their usual patterns. Tom Wilson smiled grimly. That's the problem with relying too much on technology. You forget that warfare is about outsmarting your enemy, not just outgunning them. The Raiders attempted their usual hit-and-run tactics, but this time they faced an enemy that could think like them. Human gunners, using Council weapons, predicted their escape routes. Earth's AI systems, integrated with Council computers, countered their every move before they made it. The battle raged for hours. The raiders fought desperately, but they faced something they'd never encountered before. An enemy that combined advanced technology with unpredictable adaptive tactics. Finally, the raiders' main base fell silent. Their fleet was either captured or destroyed. The dust cloud, their hiding place for so long, now held only the debris of their defeat. In the aftermath, the Council's high command called an emergency session. Tom and Laura stood before them, no longer as representatives of a primitive species, but as equals who had proven their worth. The Council acknowledges that we were incorrect in our assessment of humanity, the High Commander announced. Your species has demonstrated capabilities far beyond our understanding. First Observer stepped forward. We saw your adaptability as a weakness, your varied approaches as primitive, your secrecy as limitation. We were wrong on all counts. Those traits you dismissed, Laura replied, they're what kept humanity surviving and growing through thousands of years of challenges. We learned to adapt because we had to. We learned to be creative because we needed to be. We learned to keep secrets because sometimes that's how you survive. The Council voted unanimously to elevate Earth's status from protectorate to full member, with special recognition of humanity's military and tactical expertise. A new joint defense force would be created, combining the best of human and Council capabilities. Later, at a celebration in the Space Command Center back on Earth, Tom watched Council members mingling with humans, sharing stories, and learning from each other. You know what their biggest mistake was, he said to Laura. They thought advanced technology meant advanced thinking. They forgot that the most powerful weapon isn't a gun or a spaceship, it's the mind that uses it. Mary joined them, carrying reports from across Council space. The news of the raiders' defeat had spread, along with stories of how it was accomplished. Other species were already requesting human advisors and instructors. The galaxy's changing, Laura observed, and humanity helped change it. First Observer approached their group, his blue skin showing the purple tinge of strong emotion. There is an old Council saying, he said. The greatest wisdom comes from admitting ignorance. We were ignorant about humanity, and that has taught us much. Tom looked out at the stars through the command center's window. Somewhere out there, other threats might be waiting. But now the galaxy knew something important. Never underestimate humans. They might surprise you. And surprises, as both the Council and the Raiders had learned, were something humans were very, very good at. The end.